ways to meet employee needs.
Ways to motivate employees.
However, there's just one thing that a human resources class, it just can't teach you.
How to handle the jackass.
Hi, I'm Courtney, and I'll be playing Stan, the Director of Human Resources at the Ministry of Attorney General.
Hi, I'm Joya, and I'll be playing employee number 1.
I'm Jordan, and I'm going to be playing employee number 2.
I'm Gabby, and I'll be playing employee number 3.
And I'm Cecil, and I'll be playing the jackass named Terrence in the case of a person of influence.
Having a difficult employee is not only burdensome for the employer, it can also be excruciating for his or her fellow employees.
Take a look as we display this from the case.
Y'all, I have so much work on my desk. When is he going to be here?
He's always late.
Always.
It's ridiculous.
I wish he would hurry up.
Ain't nobody got time for this.
What's up, party people? How's everybody's weekend?
It was pretty good.
Not better than mine. I got to play a couple of rounds with none other than the Mayor A.C. Warden.
All right.
I'll call him AC for short. We're cool like that.
Ooh, and then what happened?
Yeah, please tell us more.
Well, if you must know, we went to the bar and had a few brewskis with JT.
JT?
Oh, let me explain. Justin Timberlake?
Okay.
Man, that guy sure can throw 'em back. It pays no people in high places.
Pause. This is a very important factor in this case. When dealing with an employee who knows people in high places, there's a pressure to tread lightly around them. Sometimes out of the respect for the people they know, or for the fear they'll badmouth the important people they're connected to.
But this is just one trait that's gotten Terrence into the hot seat. We're about to witness the other.
Play.
All right, guys, that completes our morning staff meeting. So let's just make sure we work hard this week and make sure we meet our targets. Thank you all. Oh, Terrence, can I get you to stay for a minute? I need to talk to you.
Oh, somebody's in trouble.
I hope so.
I'm sure he just wants me to get him tickets to the Grizzlies game. I know the owner.
So, Terrence, how's it going?
It's going.
So I just wanted to discuss with you briefly your performance so far. I mean, unfortunately, there's still a lot of room for improvement. Your report writing is just not where it should be at this point, and I'm a little afraid that you may not be advancing appropriately.
I'd have to disagree. See, Stenzo, you don't mind if I call you that.
Actually, I do, man.
Man, you're only focusing on the negative and completely ignoring the positive contributions that I'm making to the Ministry of Attorney General as a whole.
And what are these contributions that are so positive?
I mean, well, it's obvious everyone loves me. I mean, Gabby, Jordan, Joya, they can't get enough of me. I contribute to the office by promoting goodwill throughout the ministry. Has anyone even filed a complaint against me?
Pause. As you can see, Terrence was completely oblivious to his poor performance and lack of contribution at the ministry. He tried to overcompensate for these shortcomings by claims of how well liked he was or how well connected, an important piece to this puzzle.
As a public manager, knowing that an employee is slacking is only half of the battle. Sometimes convincing them that they're slacking is the other half.
What would you all say to Terrence to persuade him that he does have room for improvement and encourage him to make the necessary changes?
That's a good one.
It's a real question, not hypothetical.
Are there specific targets that he needs to be meeting?
That's the next line, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Give him some examples of how he's not contributing or things that they have notated throughout the history of him being employed there.
Good. When an employee doesn't feel like he has to improve or knows what specific target that they're striving for, more than likely significant changes aren't going to happen.
And that's exactly what's happening in this case. The first meeting that you all just witnessed, this was Terrence's 3-month probationary period. And now we're going to fast forward to today at his 6-month probationary review.
Mr. Weston, we meet again. After 6 months, I still have not seen significant improvement in your work. The deficiencies that I pointed out to you just 3 months ago, they've still not been improved. Your report writing is terrible, along with your research and analysis.
Damn! Enough is enough! I mean, you're being a little too unfair and unreasonable, might I add.
Why?
I mean, why am I the constant ridicule of everybody's conversation? I mean, take Joya, for instance. I mean, she's constantly on Facebook. I mean, messaging all of her friends, day in and day out. And Gabby, she takes more lunch breaks than the president. And
listen a lot.
I swear, man, if I have to hear one more freaking meow coming from Jordan's computer, I'm gonna scream! Oh! I just feel like I've been making progress, man, in the last 6 months. And I feel like I've actually gotten better. A whole lot better.
Now, Mr. Weston, I do agree that you have made some strides in your writing. But I'm afraid that your initial reports were just so terrible that anything you do now is insignificant. Now, I hate to do this to you, Mr. Weston, but if your writing does not improve in the next 6 months, I'm going to be forced to deny your probationary period being extended and for recommending you for a permanent position.
Man, I'm sorry.
Pause. So here we are today. Here we are today. We have a fed up employer and a pissed off employee who feels like he's being mistreated. So that leads us into our discussion portion of the presentation that Cecil is covering. Okay, so our first question that we had to ask or answer was, how should Stan Waters, I know you can read, but respond to Terrence Weston's claim of not only being unfair to him personally, but ignoring the real politic, which is an actual word, apparently, of the public sector workplace. So, does anybody want to chime in before we tell you what we think? No? That's fine too. So, we just said that,
Joya.
huh?
Joya.
Oh, we have Joya. Oh, there's two.
He should say that he's not being unfair, but he's just assessing him on his productivity and report writing, right? So.
Right, and that's kind of the gist of what we got. We said that for an employer that feels like they're being mistreated, and since he is relatively new, we said that it's important for the employer to explain to the employee that he's not being fair through paperwork. When situations like this, people need to see proof that they're not being mistreated. So if the manager, went through the codes of conduct with him and the disciplinary action order, to let him know that I'm meeting with you because this is the order in which we do things. We have a meeting first, and then it goes to this, and then it goes to that. But just to kind of map out so that he knows that he's not being singled out, but this is just the way that we do things. And additionally, for his claims of him ignoring the real politic of the office and the fact that he spreads goodwill throughout, we just said that, suggested that Stan stressed to Terrence that, him keeping up the morale that he believes he does, is not as important as him, meeting the goals that he's supposed to and doing his work as he's supposed to, and just kind of let him know that his work contribution is far more important than, any of the jokes or anything else that he may feel like he brings to the office. Just kind of help paint the big picture that we do need you to, meet the goals, meet the metrics that we have in place, and that's the ultimate goal and it's most important.
Okay. Question number 2. What recourse does Terrence Weston have to address his concerns regarding his 6-month probationary review at the Ministry of Attorney General? Anybody want to answer that? Well, collaboratively, we said that Terrence should have first took on the initiative to speak with Stan privately to discuss ways in which he could possibly improve. Being that Stan is the director of the Ministry of Attorney General, the Human Resource Director for the Ministry of Attorney General, excuse me, he's familiar with Terrence's work history and therefore would be the appropriate person to discuss those sorts of things with. And during that meeting, that could also be a forum for him to actually bring up these quote-unquote contributions that he's quote-unquote made to the ministry as a whole. And together, we decided that Terrence can come up with ways with Stan of how he could, I guess, improve, essentially. Stan could also offer guidance on how to write reports. Maybe, possibly, I think we kind of bounced around the idea of him actually pairing someone that's actually in the ministry that's pretty strong in writing with Terrence, and that way that he can kind of be a mentor to Terrence. And also we said that if meeting with Stan proves to be little help for Terrence's professional development, then he could then take the issue higher. But before any meeting is scheduled, Terrence should drop the ego and be open to constructive criticism, or he will find that his options within the ministry are very slim.
All right, question number 3. By show of hands, how many of you believe that Stan has an obligation to ensure that Terrence meets his performance measurements? Okay, so looks like about half, a little over half. As a group, we all agreed that Stan does have an obligation as the director of the Human Resources branch in the corporate division of MAG. It is his responsibility to ensure that Terrence meets his performance standards throughout his time of employment with MAG. For instance, in Van Wart, it states that monitoring and assessing work is a crucial behavior for leaders to develop. Van Wart cites several studies showing that monitoring and assessing work usually results in greater effectiveness. Therefore, as the director, Stan definitely has an obligation to ensure that Terrence and all of the other employees meet performance standards to ensure that the branch is performing up to par. One way in particular is that Stan can try clarifying, like as we said before, clarifying what Terrence needs to be doing to make sure that he understands what work is expected of him.
Okay, I've got number 4. How many of you feel like that Stan has actually made a career-limiting move by telling Terrence that he's not going to be able to recommend him either for a permanent position or for an extension of his contract? We didn't think so either.
Yeah.
Okay. We very much felt like that he was more than within his limits to tell him this, and that if anything, he was being a little too accommodating to him and his bad behavior, because it's obviously breeding a very unpleasant work environment that's going to hurt productivity, and it's really hurting the employee morale as a whole, and so his obligation as the leader to take control of the situation. And we also felt like that it would be unethical to give somebody that kind of preferential treatment just because they claim they know these people. Even though we all love Justin Timberlake, it doesn't make you a good employee. And it really wouldn't be okay to act like that, and it's a lot better to try to focus on the needs of the employees as a whole instead of accommodating this one person. And if anything, we felt like that Terrence was actually making the career limiting move because he's relying more on who he knows than what he knows.
Okay, she came hard on that. And the last question addressed what effective ways do public sector managers have in dealing with employees who may or may not be know people who are well connected. And one thing that we did bring up and we all agreed on was that there needs to be a culture within the organization that puts the people first. And as public managers, we are supposed to serve in the interest of the public. And so with that, we felt that some of the ways that they could address this was to first of all make it known to all of the employees that there is a line drawn between politics and administration. And as I said, as public service employees, we are to remain unbiased and free of political holes as it relates to our work and our working environment. Then the next thing we said was to not allow these potential connections or people that they know, allow it to intimidate you as a manager, and you can recognize that, hey, you may or may not know this person, you may really know this person, but that has nothing to do with how we run our business in this particular organization. And then to also document any encounters that you have with these employees, especially if they're negative, just to have a paper trail and to know what happened in case that employee does try to take it outside of the realm of the organization, and even use some of the people that they know to maybe make it look negative on your part. So to always make sure that you document any encounters with that particular employee.
Okay, we discussed a few of the lessons learned for public sector administrators, and that is to provide clearly stated directions for employees. We felt like as public managers and future public managers, just public managers in general, we should always strive to provide an outline for all of our employees to follow. How can we expect them to rise to a certain expectation if there isn't any clear direction as to how to do that? Also, we said hire people based on their skills and past performances versus who they know. Now, we all know that in the public sector, we kind of get a bad rap for kind of hiring people based off of who we know and not based off of the skills that they can kind of bring to the table. So we felt that in this particular case, that's kind of the situation with Terrence. He got hired based off of somebody he knew. He was completely deficient in his work. It was crazy. But he knew somebody. And we'll see a lot of that. But as public managers, we have to be aware that the skills and their past performances should be an indicator of what kind of employee they'll ultimately be.
Can I interject? I'm sorry, because what's interesting with the first two bullet points is both of them are talking about specificity with performance. On the top one, it's specificity for your expectation for them. But the second one is specificity for potential performance in the hiring process. So then you need to make sure in the hiring process you're getting the data that you need to know if someone can perform on the job. So like if this guy was slacking on report writing or whatever it was, maybe part of your hiring process is you have to do a draft report with this time limit, and then the hiring committee looks at that. That way you flagged it before it gets to this point. Maybe he doesn't get hired in the first place.
Exactly.
Seems like him and Jenkins need to hang out.
In many ways, yeah.
We also said understand as future public sector managers, we should also understand the previous culture of where a person worked prior to actually being hired or entering the organization that we're working at. Take that into consideration as well, because in our case, Terrence worked in the private sector and things were ran and operated totally differently than how things are in the public sector. So being conscientious of that and making sure that the culture that you establish is inclusive of everyone and doesn't exclude anyone, I think is something that we should also look towards. Also, explain the culture of the organization. As leaders, we'll be in that role. Like, we'll have to be the ones to explain the culture of the organization clearly, articulate the culture of the organization so that everyone is in the know. So they'll know how to behave, they'll know how to act. As you could see from the skit that we had, Terrence was completely different from all the other employees that were at MAG. He just didn't fit into the culture, and maybe it was because the culture was not explicitly explained to him when he was hired. So that's an issue that we have to think about as well, and also be proactive and not reactive.
All right, so we decided to incorporate a few things that we've learned in Bangalore, and from the chapter on skills that contribute to leader effectiveness, we gathered that Stan needs to build his communication skills. Specifically, in the case study, it said after the 3-month evaluation that when Terrence walked out, Stan wasn't sure if he was receptive of what he said, and it's crucial to make sure, it's a crucial part of communication to ensure the accurate receipt of a message. And then also in the chapter on task-oriented behaviors, first he needs to monitor and assess the work. He said that Terrence's report writing wasn't very well, but he didn't provide any actual formal evaluations of Terrence's work. And if he did like a formal evaluation, he'd be able to tell him specific indicators on what he needs to improve. And this kind of goes along with clarifying the roles and objectives. If he told Terrence, if Stan told Terrence exactly what he needed to improve, then maybe by the time of the 6-month evaluation, Terrence would have improved a little bit. And lastly, in the chapter on people-oriented behavior, he should also develop his staff. I believe that Terrence could have benefited from some counseling and mentoring to help him become more effective at his job, and then also to prepare him for his position in the future.
Okay, we looked at Stan kind of through the lens of the 8 Dimensions book, and we decided that Stan was a very inclusive leader, and this can be very good because it has a strong desire to accept and to be accommodating and to have that strong desire for harmony. And so this can be a really good thing, but it can be a negative thing when you have somebody like Terrence that's going to take advantage of that. And, Stan's really internalizing the problem and not dealing with it head on. I think he's wanting to, accommodate him on and on and on. And then it's making everything worse for all the employees. It's making the workplace terrible. So it's really time for Stan to step up here and be a man and be like, listen, Terrence.
And also, in looking at the 8 dimensions, as you can see, the inclusive leadership style is directly across from commanding. So there are some things from the commanding leadership style that Stan can take to help kind of offset those perceived weaknesses of the inclusive leadership style. And so with that, we looked at the qualities of speaking with conviction, not being afraid to take risks, and also being able to make really tough and unpopular decisions. So even when he was telling Terrence that he would not be able to extend, or possibly would not be able to extend his contract or recommend him for a permanent position, there was a lot of hesitation in there. He was a little bit afraid of telling Terrence that because I guess knowing the reaction that Terrence would have. So we just decided to look at that because we feel like those are things that could help him in addressing these types of employees as well.
Okay, for the recommendations, a lot of these have been touched on throughout the presentation, either through you all's feedback or just things that we've said already. So just to kind of skim by, we just said that, of course, Stan should provide clear direction for Terrence. He was pretty vague in the first meeting with him, just kind of letting him know you're not really performing as you should, but didn't really give him anywhere to go from there. Be more commanding and forthright with him. Match Terrence with another staff member. I think someone suggested that as well. Provide specifics on how Terrence could improve. Again, just giving clear direction as to this is where you are, this is where you need to be, and make sure that he understands that. Same, establish goals, professional development opportunities. We gave that as a recommendation because we did see the responsibility of the employer to, if the employee is valuable to you, it's the employer's responsibility to make sure they have the things that they need to be an effective employee, and make sure that they have the resources and tools that they need. So if he wanted to keep Terrence around, and he should have made sure that he had the help he needed, or the understanding, more training if need be, or just other resources that he needed to be an effective employee.
And so in conclusion, we kind of tied this back to how, as we prepare to graduate and go into this field, we feel like this case provided a good example of the type of people that we may encounter either as employees or as managers in the public sector. And so we felt like there are Terrences and there are Stans all over the place, and that we all need to understand and really think about how do you deal with people like this, because it's kind of inevitable not to be, have to. So that concludes it. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Nope. If not, we have a little game for you guys.
There's more.
Jeopardy! So we need 3 volunteers from the audience who wants to come. We have prizes. Don't worry about that. You're gonna participate. We need 3 volunteers.
We'll show you the prizes, maybe that'll.
Jennifer, one more?
Yeah, I'll do it.
All right, come have a seat right here.
You don't want to be in the doghouse the rest of the
Sit
week.
nice, sit nice.
I'm working off the report tonight.
These are pretty easy questions.
And the bag.
And this is real deal Jeopardy with the black host.
Do we have to?
Y'all want to flip a coin? I'm sorry, we didn't really think that part of it. Y'all was
Mark, I can go first.
Yeah, let's just go, yeah.
okay.
Go back and sit down. And then
I know.
Go for it.
Leadership for 100.
Leadership for 100.
All right.
Establishing a plan to achieve a task or tasks. Well, yeah, so y'all come around there. Establishing a plan to achieve a task.
Was
That,
I think that they should continue as far as a
have you ever
dialogue.
watched Jeopardy?
Okay. What is continue, Alex?
What is what?
Continue.
Continue.
Just stay on the
You gonna help Dave?
Yeah.
What is a decision? You have to say what is something. And it's like,
We haven't played Jeopardy in so long.
Goal setting. Close. We'll give it to him. Goal setting.
decision plan, goal setting.
Yeah, what is the answer?
Team 3 dominating.
So Dave is gonna get
This is not real Jeopardy.
Let's do
Yes,
Terrence Wilson for 100.
The reason Terrence thought Stan wanted him to stay behind at the initial
Because he thought that he would get him tickets to the Grizzlies.
So you want to say that in Jeopardy style?
I don't know how to do it in Jeopardy.
What
Do
is-
the question for me.
What is?
You don't have to do that in
Yeah, I
zero
know.
Jeopardy and double Jeopardy.
This is my Jeopardy.
What is bribing?
If you want to give
What is
him,
bribing?
what is what?
Bribing?
But what if-
Bribing, bribing.
Like you're
More
right.
specifically, what if he's
yeah, he already said.
Yeah, you were right.
Jiggy.
Thanks, Jordan. Thank you.
You get this way.
I'm team 2.
okay? Go.
We'll do Terrence for 200.
The one who is always on Facebook.
Aw.
Who is Joya?
Yeah, Joya.
A wonderful individual. A wonderful person.
Stan Waters 100.
The opposite of command and leadership style without.
Yes.
Inclusive. Oh, well, this isn't the 8 dimensions, is it? Or
What is
what is
it?
inclusive?
Damn
Okay.
it. So,
Stan Waters 200.
so Stan told Terrence he would be denied this if no improvement is shown.
What is his probation period? Probationary period.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
What? Let me take Terrence Weston 300.
Yes.
Oh.
Was.
Raise hand at the back.
She already entertained.
Oh, what is a jackass?
Arrogance. What is arrogance?
No.
What is pride? What are those crap?
You want to give
Just, I was gonna say arrogant.
What is
arrogant?
laziness?
What is his, like
You
on
only
the
get
job,
one
what is his
response.
weakness? Like what is he not?
You want to
Writing skill.
Apathy.
I said.
Lack
Oh,
of.
she read that.
What is,
Writing skills.
is that?
Oh yeah.
I already
What is
said.
writing skills?
No, right? What is, I don't know, what is
Said
writing
right.
skills, another answer.
Oh, okay.
They can flip a coin for the coin.
You got to hit your.
Who you
Correct.
helping?
Who you helping?
The first person who raises up their hand.
Two.